Business Express, and I've been joined by the businessman himself. Everything business and the figures has got it all covered now, whether in pounds or in dollars. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Omas. Wish it was in dollars. Good morning to all our viewers, listeners out there. Good to be with you all on a Wednesday. And I actually misspoke on Monday when I said I would be on tomorrow. I got my dates mixed up. I actually meant I was going to be with you guys again on Wednesday. So happy to be here.
Okay, just before someone outs you instantly, so it's been said now. So just let them
Exactly.
know
I
that
report myself.
you,
Report
you know
myself.
this guy, you should know the audience right now, how they take it they take your word to the bank. That's how serious it is. So, but just be sure to send us a WhatsApp message to be part of the conversation this morning to 0809 444 0981 will be where we read all the messages relating to this topic for discussion. You can reach down to youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos and get your thoughts also and see a live stream of this edition. So, Rotus, we see withholding tax is getting the attention of the government, but we needed to work us into this one when it broke yesterday. What can you tell us about the proposal to simplify withholding tax in Nigeria?
Yeah, so we got a tweet from Taiwo Oyedele, who of course is the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform. Fiscal policy in Nigeria has come under a lot of attention because it needs to hold up its side of the bargain with monetary policy. We've seen the Central Bank of Nigeria raise interest rates, try to reduce money supply, even though money supply here has now hit 100 trillion. And basically, try to manage the exchange rate and do a number of things. Those have to be supported by on the fiscal side. So Oyedele's mandate is to try to simplify, tax collection and reduce the burden, particularly reduce the burden on firms, because one of the issues that firms in Nigeria are facing is multiple taxation. So if I encourage everyone to go to his Twitter handle and read his most recent tweet where he gives the background on when withholding tax was introduced in Nigeria in 1977 in order to try to increase revenue. But then he now talks about the challenges, hasn't been managed very well. It's now been added to a list of other taxes that are burdening businesses. So he essentially says there's been an approval for a simplification of withholding tax, and he now goes through a number of lists a number of items as to what is expected to happen, and then he specifically lists about 7 specific items that says should be published in the next few days and gazetted actually. So it's a welcome improvement because he's been working on this for quite a while. He's trying to deal with a whole number of other things, but the main mandate here is to reduce the burden on firms, particularly smaller ones, not just big firms, smaller firms as well, in order to reduce the tax burden and allow them more room to operate.
So, Rosus, if you can do this for us briefly, what does the taxman Oyedele really mean when we say withholding tax? So, for those who don't know what it means, and then touch up some of these areas he highlighted.
Yeah, it's deducted at source. So it's essentially part of a list of taxes that are paid that is supposed to be deducted at source when transactions are essentially completed by businesses. But there have been a number of complexities that have muddied the waters when it comes to withholding tax in terms of collection, in terms of how it is applied, and so on and so forth. So that's essentially what he's trying to sort out for the firms in Nigeria.
And then you were going to touch up on some of the 7 points he listed in his tweet.
Okay, yes. Okay, so just to go through those 7 items. Okay, so item 1, he talks about he listed the exemption of SMEs, well, some SMEs from withholding tax. So based on their size, some of them may not have to pay it at all. So that, of course, will be giving them some breathing room. Item 2, it says reduced rates for firms with low margins. That is particularly important. If you are a business that has low profit margins, the tax is only going to eat into your profits some more. So based on how they're able to identify those firms, they will essentially allow those firms to not have to pay that tax. Again, it's going to be based on profit margins. Then he talks about exemptions for manufacturers and producers. So along the value chain from, when items get produced to exchange between, wholesalers and middlemen, it's applied at different points. So what he wants to do is to reduce the applications to perhaps allow for producers to have more room so they don't have to pay it. And also manufacturers. Manufacturers, as you know, in Nigeria, facing a whole lot of challenges, erratic power supply, a foreign exchange that has become quite, the rates, you've seen what's with the rates now. The official rate now, it's back to 1,500. And then also the multiple taxation issues. So he wants to try and give manufacturers as much breathing room as possible. Then he says measures to curb evasion and minimize tax avoidance. That's something that unfortunately is an issue. When you think about Nigeria's revenue collection, we need all the money we can get. And unfortunately, tax evasion is something that happens. So they're trying to digitize the process so where they can immediately identify firms that are avoiding taxes, avoiding paying them, and try to make sure that collections are increased along those lines. And he talks about ease of obtaining credit and utilization of tax deducted at source. So credit is very important to a lot of businesses, a lot of SMEs, in terms of them being able to, take loans to expand their operations and so on and so forth. And that's something that they're trying to look at in addition to reducing the tax burden. And it says changes to reflect emerging issues and adopt global best practices, putting Nigeria on par with other emerging markets and even developed markets in terms of how they use withholding tax within governments on their fiscal side. And it says clarity on timing of deduction and definition of key terms. So that also helps businesses to know when these deductions will be made so that they can streamline their operations accordingly. So, there's more that we'll be hearing from him with respect to how this is going to work over time.
Now, to the crux of the matter, like every theory we've seen from the books, from the economic textbook, elementary or probably in tertiary institutions, will it work, Rotus?
Well, that depends on the implementation, Omatseye. You're correct. We can they talk about the theoretical, but this is a big country. We've got 36 states. We're going to have everybody playing their role from, officials at the federal level, officials at the state level, local government level, private sector, and so on and so forth. All the different inland revenue services for each particular state. To make sure that everyone is playing their part. So it's got the proof, what was that saying? Proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. So yeah, I mean, and look, this is not an easy position that the task he was given, but this is his baby. I mean, he's PwC is his background. He's a tax person, so he knows the work. He's a round peg in a round hole. But tax stuff is complicated. I mean, it's complex. There's multiple layers. You're dealing with so many stakeholders. He's held so many meetings. So I think on our side, we have to be patient, knowing how hard of a job this is. He's the right man for the job, but he's going to need some time. So it's in implementation, and that's going to be gradual across the different stages of government.
Now, the next question is linked to this one you just gave us the answer to, but we'd like to read your messages. If you send them across to 0809-444-0981. Benga Akamu, we see you there and you say, welcome back to Rotus, but let's get on to this next one. There's somewhere with the elephant in the room is the informal sector, such a large number left out of the tax net.
Yes, and look, the informal sector plays a huge role in terms of our economy, in terms of the jobs. But unfortunately, as far as money getting into government coffers, that's been tough. And we understand, of course, even Oyedele himself has said that they still do pay some form of taxes. It just doesn't go to official channels, right? in terms of how, of how they're charged. So they are working with, I think, cooperatives in order to, streamline collections from these informal businesses, because based on where they're located, they are in areas where they are working with, market people, cooperatives that know who they are. So that's I think there's something that's happening with the FIRS and some other cooperatives where that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, where they want to work together, try to collect taxes from folks in the informal sector. But one of the best other things to do is to try to get them formalized, right? But then there's trust issues and so on and so forth. So that we've been talking about this for years, and that is another big task. But maybe by having these cooperatives act as middlemen, that can make the process maybe more efficient going forward.
Now, help us sum this one up. When you talk of taxes, you'd also be talking about wages and the rest of it. So there's something, the latest report by budget. Can you talk us through this, and what role can states also play in terms of taxes?
Yeah, so Oyedele is trying to talk to the states to reduce the multiple taxes that they have. So he's going to the state level. But then the states they're trying to lob as many taxes as possible to firms, because the states are, a number of them are underwater, right? Outside of Lagos, Delta, Rivers, there are only a few states that are above water. So the minimum wage discussion has been ongoing. I mean, as you know, a number of states are not even paying the 30,000, not to talk of whatever new number is going to be put up. So Budget, which is a financial advocacy, fiscal responsibility, the economic think tank, put out a report, it was either yesterday or the day before yesterday, on the state's ability to pay a minimum wage. And what we found out from the numbers is that, again, they just don't have, a lot of them don't have the capacity. So when you tie that into what Oyedele is trying to do to reduce taxes, that just tells you that that's going to be a bit complicated as well, because these states want to collect as much money as possible. Some of them only get their money from FAC allocations. Their internally generated revenue is not enough. So again, Omas, it's a task and a half in order to get this thing sorted out.
Thanks, Rotus. So we've got messages waiting here. Now, let's see. Wenga Kamu's thoughts here, in addition to saying welcome to you. We missed you on Monday, but then let's see what it says. It says, high interest rates not damaging manufacturing and killing jobs creation in Nigeria, like Dangote noted yesterday. What's your take on this quickly? That's what Benga was saying.
He actually, thank you, Benga. I actually missed that when I was talking about the manufacturing sector, and I mentioned multiple taxation, erratic power supply, foreign exchange. I left out interest rates, so thank you. Yeah, interest rates are too high, but then that's linked to the cost of doing business. Think about a typical bank or merchant bank, commercial bank in this country. The cost of diesel, there's no power to run your physical branch. Basically the cost of doing business is high. So that is now, and then there's, default rates that are really high because you don't have a proper identification system that can track somebody who takes a loan and defaults on it to try to collect their collateral. So that on that side of the coin, we have to work on reducing the cost of business for financial institutions so they don't try and make their money back through higher interest rates. So again, Nigeria is just walk. There's just a lot that has to be done.
Yeah. So in essence, it seemed like, when the listener follow at this point, you seem to live in their head, because how can the Benga be working your mind at the same time, checking out your work script? But that's how we say thank you so much, Rotus, for Hump of the Week.
Hey, Omas, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thanks for the messages. Catch you guys again soon.
All right. We see Sam from Iyanokbaja. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Keep listening to Smooth 98.1 FM.